you so much for those wonderful introductions. These ladies are very like well-rounded and well-versed, and I'm just so excited to have them with us. I'm gonna ask a few little fun icebreaker questions. Each lady gets one. Don't be scared. It's fun, and we're just gonna get to know each other a little bit more before we get into the meat and potatoes of tonight's discussion. So I'm going to start with Lisa. What is the most adventurous food you've ever tried?
So I studied abroad in Spain in college, and there was one night the host family I lived with, I thought I was eating pasta, but it actually turned out to be sea snakes. And it took a good 10 or 15 minutes to kind of like be able to communicate back and forth and get us on the same page as to what was happening. So they're very salty and garlicky.
So were you like, this is imposter? Like, I know spaghetti, but like, this isn't it?
No, I just thought it was a different kind of pasta. I was like, this is a little weird. I did not know. So it was finishing the meal was definitely a little different than starting it after I knew.
Okay. Amy, what is one thing you do not like to share?
Oh my goodness, for everyone that knows me, I'm not shy about anything. I guess I would say I hate having my picture taken and I hate being recorded. So if you're ever around me, I will always be taking pictures at events and posting them, but you very rarely. So I guess I would just say that, not because of any criminal background or anything like that, just, I don't know, that's just not me. I'd rather project other things and not myself.
You don't like sharing your likeness? Okay. Noted.
Unless it's licensed, trademarked.
Written permission.
Mm-hmm.
And then Lori, what is one song your family and friends would be surprised that you know every single word to?
Okay. Well, and I went through those questions and I asked my husband. So my friends here, like, my grown-up friends would be surprised that I knew the song to the REO Speedwagon, Time for Me to Fly. Having said that, my high school friends would expect me to know the words to that song because we sang it all together. So that was kind of our theme song. So that's, but my friends here would be like, really, Lori? So
I'm gonna have to look that song up. I'd like to see
we'll have to look
surprised that you know
it. 70s.
Okay, ladies, I have one final question for each of you. So Lori, since we were just talking to you, I'm gonna ask you to pick a number between 1 and 35.
Okay, 4.
Okay, Lisa?
7.
And then Amy?
14.
14. Okay. So we know each other, we're well acquainted. I'm gonna get into it with the first question and ask all of you, what sparked your interest in nonprofit/community impact work?
I'll go,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Yeah.
If you look at my resume, I primarily work in nonprofits, and a lot of times it's something that you're drawn to for whatever reason. You can make difference in a lot of different ways. And for me, because I was working for nonprofits or when I worked at a hospital-based system, I then wanted to do something more. And I then was looking towards community organizations that I could do that.
Okay.
And I joined the junior league when I was, I think probably like 26, maybe 25, 26. And I was new to Columbus, and I wanted to make a difference in, the community. I wanted to do something outside of my work that that I felt was important, that I could make a difference.
And I would say, so I've kind of described myself to friends and coworkers before as a joiner. I have found over the course of my lifetime, I've joined a lot of different organizations, in high school, signing up for yearbook, 3 different sports, lots of different activities. And so out of college, I was looking for, some more ways to get involved in the community, and found a friend who was involved in the junior league. And I think that just kind of opened up my eyes to all the opportunities available for nonprofits in Central Ohio, as well as all of the needs that our community is facing too.
Okay, and like, so all of you ladies mentioned that like you were looking to do more. Like, how did you determine what organizations, like how do you go about finding organizations that sort of have missions that you are passionate about? Like, cause like other than the junior league, like let's leave that out aside, but like your other organizations that you joined, like what drew you to them? How did you find them? Was it a Google search? Was it word of mouth?
So I started board service in '03, actually, before I joined the junior league, and it was because of a link through work that I was involved with an organization. It's no longer around, but if looking at my experience serving on nonprofit boards, or it's always about kids or dogs. That's where it goes to, kids or dogs. And for those of you that have children, you then know that their activities become your activities. So then you might then be serving on their different teams, boards, or different activities such as that. But it's just, for me, it was a positive experience. And as I said, children and dogs. So those are the things that I get drawn to.
And for me, I've been working for a bank since 1987, and the bank that I started working for here, State Savings Bank, was very promoted being involved in the community. So that was really an expectation. So, I did the chamber board, and because I'm in the mortgage area, Women's Council of Realtors board. And so those were just opportunities given to me really at work. As far as the junior league, there were friends of mine at Vanderbilt, and their mothers were in junior league. So that's how I found out about it. And then was just networking with some friends, and one was interested in joining because her boss was in junior league. And that's how I really I got introduced. And from there, on the other boards that I've served on or currently serving on, it was all junior league introductions. And that's kind of, as I tell my kids, one opportunity leads to another opportunity. So I feel very fortunate in that.
Yeah, I think that's very true, Lori. So similar way, AAP, we're very involved in the community, and almost any board in Central Ohio for a nonprofit probably has a member from AAP on the board, or recently had someone. So there was someone at AAP that had rolled off the A Kid Again board, and I was introduced to it and met with them. And it is children, like you, Amy. I feel like I always gravitate, women and children is kind of where I gravitate. And normally I think I'm more interested in like basic needs type of issues. But through A Kid Again, it is providing adventures, kind of like that aspect of, holistic, looking at lives and just rounding them out, giving them happy opportunities to have fun with their family, and be able to be distracted from some of the challenges that they're facing. So I found it to be very rewarding. And a lot of our families, they are about like 30% are at or below poverty level. So it still, I think, is in a way still meeting basic needs.
Okay. So Lisa, you mentioned that like a position opened. Like, what does it mean to be on a board? Like, so you said there was an open position, but like, how did you know you were ready to be on the board, and how did you know you were ready to assume that kind of responsibility?
So, I mean, I think, it's all the experiences that we've had throughout our lives. So I think for being able to bring a perspective of a certified public accountant to a board is important from that financial aspect, and making sure that the organization is solvent. So that's a big part of why I thought I was prepared. And then also having served on the junior league and being involved in those meetings where, we do go through and we have to vote on different aspects of, how do we want to operate in the future? What changes do we have to make? A lot of nonprofits face financial challenges. And I think having that financial background is one area that I can contribute. there's other people on the A Kid Again board that they're focused on marketing and getting the word out. So I think there's lots of different ways that we can bring, the time, talent, treasure to a board and improve what they're working on and help them do a better job.
Lori and Amy, did you guys, like when you took your board positions, were they something that you sought out, or was there someone who saw some skills or talents of yours and was like, hey, you do great on this board, like this is a great opportunity, I think, to try it out?
This is Amy. I think it's a little of both. And I think Lori and Lisa would say that as well, that in some ways, but it's where you want to take the skills that you've developed and put forth into whatever organization or in the community, but then also you want to develop skills, which that's what the Junior League is about, developing the potential of women. And I can tell you right now that the Junior League of Columbus, with the meetings and the procedures and the different policies, so many times other boards that I've served on, I then go back to that experience with the Junior League. I'll say, wait a minute, where's the motion? Where's the second? Where's the vote? We need to do minutes. All of these things that, being a part of the Junior League of Columbus, various committees and boards, really was so important. So for me, it sometimes asked, sometimes I then also asked, because I wanted to be more involved with the organization.
And same here. And a number of the times, like I said, it was Junior League members that had reached out to me, and I had a chance to go to the event, their fundraisers, or actually with the YWCA, we had actually partnered with them during when Nordstrom had opened, and had helped raise money for them with two other organizations, the Links chapter. So my introduction to one of the members of the Links chapter, who was on the board for the YWCA. So that was how that connection was made. But I'm going to kind of dovetail on what Amy said, and the Junior League has prepared me for those the board positions. So it wasn't any different going into those meetings, because I understood, like I said, motion or agendas, financial statements, and really how a board meeting, should be run, and how, the different areas work. And I was going to kind of dovetail too, as far as the, being on the board, you bring your skill set on a nonprofit that really runs on, ones I've been on, you run on a shoestring budget. They don't always, they don't have a marketing department. They don't have a personnel department. So the board members provide those skill sets and support to help make the organization, stronger. And then they get all these different views from different companies and different, perspectives, which I think is really, which is really great. And I think makes our nonprofits in Columbus very strong.
And I have to say that Lisa is, because you served as treasurer, didn't you, Lisa?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's the hardest job. I would never be a treasurer on a nonprofit. I mean, just everything, having to do that work, and the pennies, and making sure everything's working out, and the 990, I mean, all of it is just so intense, because as Lori said, it's a shoestring budget, and it's really up to the treasurer to be, are we projecting where we need to be and going forward? And that's why I really think the CPAs are very well sought after. But I mean, some of our treasurers have been lawyers and haven't been CPAs. So
yeah, I agree. There's lots of different ways that to help from the financial aspect, and it can be tough, and sometimes it's just being able to see that we do need to maybe make a tough decision to maybe downsize some sort of program area, and being willing to make those tough decisions. And one other thing I want to mention is, if you're considering joining a board, to make sure that you're ready, can you truly commit to being an active board member? Can you show up to those meetings? Can you show up to, like there was a board social last night, because we haven't really been able to meet in person due to the pandemic. And I think it's really important, like these nonprofit boards, if you take up a space and you're not going to be an active board member, in some ways that's going to hurt that organization, and you're trying to join and support them, and you want to make sure that if you're going to commit to being on a board and taking up that space, that you can be an active member and fulfill the commitments that they expect you to be able to make.
That's a great point. And I just wanted to bring up, like, what do you ladies think was one of the biggest challenges you faced in your tenure as a board member?
For me, I think we were kind of facing these transition years. So we went through, a lot changed in the last decade. So one of our large fundraisers was called Bargain Box. It was a rummage sale, and it used to pull in, at one point it might have put in maybe like 80 or 100,000. And then it kind of just started, ticking down and was, 60,000, 50,000, 40,000. And it, we faced some challenges. It was always held at Vets Memorial. Well, that was sold and torn down. So each year it was like we were scrambling to figure out where are we going to host it the next year. And ultimately, every year we were deciding, should we try to pull it together and have the event one more time, or is this the time to sunset it? So I always think that was a challenge.
Are you talking about like a junior league challenge, or even just another board challenge?
Just any board that you were
on. Because one of the boards I was on, we had an executive director that didn't work out. And unfortunately, during that time, as a board, we had to spend a lot of our endowment. We hired a new executive director, and the person had to do the rebuilding, and that was really hard. And it was really hard to spend endowment money. We had to shut down one of our services and say goodbye to it, and it was a tough time. Was can we stay in business? And we had really good board members and a really good executive director that came in and really turned the organization around. But it made me really realize like how important, even though you realize it, you knew how important having like a rainy day fund and to really think about how money, is being spent. And the organization is fine. So they were turned around, but it was really tough. And as a board member, you feel a huge responsibility to making the organization successful.
Two things. One is that sometimes you're on the board of an organization where the members don't put forth their bare minimum effort, because that's just as important, members or employees of an organization. But the one talking about with Upper Arlington Crew, when we would be putting on multiple regattas a year, and it's hundreds, if not thousands of hours over a long period of time, which is, you just need everyone to step up and do their part. And if they don't, then it's like the course line still has to get in, or the boats have to launch. So you try and figure out what you can do. And then the other is that I've served on a couple of boards where it's in that very beginning stages, and I can't remember if it was Lisa or Lori who said this, where like you're building we need to have financial procedures. We need to have, we need to be doing these things and just building that, which although it's fantastic for the organization and the organization is fine, it's still tiring. And it's where you almost sometimes feel like, why don't you know? Like, this is very important. But then you rally, and it's about educating, and it's about empowering, and it's about learning, because I learn each and every single day. I don't know everything about it, but that's what I would say for myself.
Those are really great answers. And this the way that you ladies talked about what you learned from those outcomes was is really great. And so, as I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, the Junior League is gearing up for our centennial in 2023. So I want to ask, what was the most impactful event that you helped put together or participated in the Junior League?
I'll say, because Lisa had mentioned it. I was fortunate. All of the projects I've served on have been great, but I would say the most impactful for me was Bargain Box. Because it was the one event that all of the junior league members were required to participate in. So it was great having all of the membership rallying around one activity, but it was also about the customers or the clients. There would be those people that had been coming. They were now had children of their own, and they said, "Oh, I came when I was a child with my mom." And you would see those multi-generations coming together, or the gentleman that would always come and buy sporting equipment for the apartment building that he lived in, so the kids had toys to play with, or someone else that would buy shoes to send back to their village in Africa. And then you would have those sorts of things where it was, oh my goodness, it was almost like they were friends coming home, but you saw the difference that it made. And it did decline in revenue over the years, but it was also thrift stores were coming about, online, like eBay, things that didn't exist when it was created, the buy sell trades on Facebook, all of those things that weren't around, as long as it didn't go to a dump. I mean, that's the most important thing, but those other aspects. So for me, it was seeing this huge amount coming together, from the warehouse days to the setup to the sale, but also it was the Junior League of Columbus together doing this service project. So it was great.
Yeah. And I think my favorite event was Adopt a Backpack. So we have a project called ABC Backpack, and give away, I think around 5,000 backpacks each year, stuffed with school supplies for kids. And there were always a couple events that we could attend where we could actually pass those backpacks out personally to the children, and just seeing the look on their face when they got all of these brand new school supplies and their very own backpack. You really just can't beat putting a smile on a child's face.
Well, and kudos to AEP, Lisa, for their huge support of the ABC project for over the years. So I think it's now maybe 12 or 13 years that AEP has supported the project. So I have to give kudos.
I think it's more, because I remember when I was interviewing at AEP, I thought to myself, they give a lot of money to Junior League, so I know they're doing, I appreciate that. So it really was one of the things that I looked at when I was job searching at that time in my life, that meant a lot, that AEP, gives back to the community.
And I'm going to talk about one of the projects, which was Village to Child, which was we were partnering with Ohio Dominican, and we met with middle school girls. And I can't, and this was a number of years ago, I can't remember if it was every week, but it was on Saturday mornings, and you committed, to those Saturdays and being there. And we were like group leaders, but it was wonderful getting to know the girls, and and being a part of that project. And I was just, a volunteer with that. I wasn't putting together the curriculum or anything like that. I just enjoyed being the worker bee there.
Yeah, sometimes it's definitely fun to be the worker bee. I love being the worker bee sometimes. Just put me to work. I don't want to think. Just tell me what you need me to do. So let me see my next question. I had it and I lost it. So do you have any advice that you'd give to someone wanting to join a board? I know we talked about it in bits and pieces throughout this conversation, but what are maybe 3 things that you would advise someone who wants to join a board?
Well, I'm going to start because I'm going to go over, kind of dovetail on what Lisa had said, but, making sure that you understand, the commitment, and, that if they have meetings on the 4th Tuesday of the month, that you can make those meetings on the 4th Tuesday of the month. You don't have another commitment. There's a financial commitment. There's typically fundraising commitments. I'm trying to think of, being on a committee, and, so it is, a bigger commitment. So I always say, make sure that works in your, in your life at this point. Another thing is, I think it's important to look at, the financials, and look and see, where they're getting their money from. Is it, all from one source, or is it diversified from donors and corporations, grants, fundraisers. I think that's good, really good to look at, just to give you a feel for, the financial, the financial position. So I don't know if I had, um, no, and I think also too, I put, be excited about their mission and the work that they do. I think that's probably the most important.
I think one way to get involved before maybe you join a board is there's a lot of ways to volunteer with different organizations. So whether you're volunteering for a fundraiser, helping plan that, or just setting it up that day. I know some organizations, they'll have committees that are made up of both board members and community members, and that can be maybe a little bit smaller time commitment and financial commitment, and you can kind of see if you're ready to dive in all the way, and just get exposure a little bit to how nonprofits work and what some of their challenges are and how you can contribute.
I would dovetail off what Lori said, and making sure it's a passion or an interest. Don't just sign up because someone needs, a placement filled, because that's going to show in your commitment to the organization, and then also the joy you get from it, because it's a two-way street. You're helping the organization achieve their goals, their mission, whether it's financial or programmatic, but then also, what are you getting from it? Are you getting what you want to get from it? Developing skills, using your skills to better someone else, and then finding that joy. As Lori said, the fourth Tuesday of the month, you don't want to be like, I have this meeting I have to go to. No, I get to be a part of this organization. I get to be involved in their work. I get to help them achieve their mission. And that's that joy. So do your research, like Lori said, but then also making sure that it brings you that joy. It's always going to be work. There's never not going to be work. There's going to be work involved, but finding the joy.
I love that passion part, because I joined the Junior League because of their mission with the Bridging the Gap, and I'm super passionate about it. But so, like you said, sometimes it gets rough, because if I hadn't been passionate about it, I don't know if I could have made it through this past year because of COVID. But I'm like, no, I like this project. I'm going to continue to do it, and I have such a great network of women around me because we're an empowering organization. So I was always empowered and encouraged. So that's a great point that you ladies all brought up. So before we turn it over to our audience for questions, I have one more question for each of you. You all remember that you picked a number at the beginning of this conversation. And being part of a board, it means you're a leader. So I will start with Lisa. What would you tell your 7-year-old self about being a community leader?
About
knowing
what?
Knowing what you know now,
leader.
What would you tell your 7-year-old self about being a community leader?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say, maybe at that time I would have thought that it's going to be mostly about going to parties and fundraisers. That's maybe what I would have, kind of thought the biggest perk of the gig would be. But really, there's so much more. It's really most of your time is going to be put in, having conversations with your nonprofit, and making sure that there is that you're bringing your full network to that board to provide as many connections and solutions to problems that they're facing.
Okay, Lori, same question. What would you tell your 4-year-old self, knowing what you know now about being a community leader?
It's more than showing up with your yellow pad of paper and that I guess I would be like, you have a lot to learn because you're just 4, but if you have the enthusiasm, I probably would say just take a risk and go for it. Even though you may not you aren't going to know, everything and how everything is going to turn out. You take a risk on a position that, you may not totally feel you can do. So, for a 4-year-old, that's a tough one. I shouldn't have picked 4.
And finally, Amy, what would you tell your 14-year-old self knowing what you know now?
So that would be 8th or 9th grade, depending on when you were turning 14. And, that's always about friendship or people liking you or not liking you. And something that I found on one of the boards is there was, and it wasn't the junior league, there was a woman that was on the board. And if you would say, the sky is blue, she would say green. If she said, no, you can't do these things, I just kept going, what is up with her? And like, she just doesn't like people, what's going on? And it turned out that this person had been in the military. So very procedure, very, this is it, this is yes or no. And so I would say that then, finding that line, you don't have to be best friends with everyone, but you need to respect them, and then you need to respect their viewpoint on where they're coming from and understanding it. You're not always going to agree, but if you know where they're coming from, then it makes it certainly easier when you're interacting or reading an email and not thinking this person is being combative or just disagreeing to disagreeing, but they're doing it because there's a certain reason. So understanding the reason and embracing that, and remember to find that element of fun, not as much as the 4-year-old, but having fun.
Okay, so now audience, do you guys have any questions for our panelists? Feel free to type them in the chat or take yourself off mute. Okay. So someone asked, how have you juggled family life and volunteering?
So when I joined the junior league, my stepdaughters were 9 and 10, and I had been working with the junior league through my work, and they kept saying, you need to join, and I'd say, I don't have time. And my husband at that time then said, well, when is the good time? So I think it's making sure that if you have those games or activities that you stay true to that for your family. But also, I said this during one of my times speaking at the junior league, is that they were voluntold as well. And that was something that Dr. Mary Olerman, and past president, would always say, they were voluntold. So before I went for some of my leadership positions within the junior league specifically, I talked about it with my husband and said, this is going to be X amount of commitment. And how do you feel about that? How will that impact the family, and how we can go forward? But my stepdaughters have volunteered at all of the organizations over the years that I've been a part of. So that's how I juggled it.
Your husband sounds like an awesome man. Congratulations.
Aw. Too bad he's not here, but I'll pay you to tell him that later.
Well, and for me, I was pregnant with my second child when they asked me to be junior league president, or I would have been president-elect. And I was like, I had to really think about it, because I thought, I really don't know how all this is going to play out. But, I talked to my husband, and, and he has been very, was very supportive and understanding there's meetings and things like that. And frankly, I would just take I went to a conference and took my husband and my 2-year-old and the baby, and off we went to one of the conferences, and he was really helpful. I think it's how you juggle is you have a good support system around you to be able to to do it. And I think too, you have to prioritize what's important, and that you can't do everything, but there's certain things you can do. And I believe in that, so that you're not pulled so thin, and you can still enjoy your family, enjoy your volunteer commitment.
And I have found, I've gone through stages where I'm really involved in something, and then maybe take a couple years off. So, joined junior league when I was probably like 24, 25. And, I was on the board when I had one child, and maybe another time when I had 2. And I was asked, hey, would you want to be president? Would you consider? And I said no. I said, no, I don't think this is the right time. And then, sustained, which is kind of retiring from the junior league, and took a few years off and wasn't involved in anything. And then when I got the ask to be on the A Kid Again board, I thought to myself, the kids are a little bit older, and I, heard about the commitment, and I thought, I think I can do this, especially because it's an organization where I can take my kids to some of the events. So I think it's about timing. You might not be able to do everything all of the time, but there's probably going to be some times that you are able to maybe ramp up and do a little bit more, and then sometimes you're going to have to maybe cool off a little bit, do a little bit less.
That's really great that you were able to set that boundary
Mm-hmm.
and you yourself so well to sounds like a great
Mm-hmm.
opportunity, but no, not now. And then you came back later. That's really great. Our next question is, how do we do a better job incorporating diversity, inclusion, and equity in our work? I know this is a big question, but it's such an important topic, and there's so much momentum around this right now. How have your organizations included this work?
So
Go, Lisa.
We're working on that at A Kid Again. It's very important to us that our board looks like our families, the families that we represent. And so, we took a look at, where are we at? We're a little bit light on women, light on minorities. And so, I think our goal over the next year or so is probably to expand the board and, find some great people that, can help us represent and have that diverse voice so that we can better represent, maybe all of the needs and points of view that our families have.
I would say educate, provide opportunities for learning. The United Way of Central Ohio has been doing some great trainings. The Junior League of Columbus has been doing some great trainings, but also not just doing them to do them, but finding the purpose behind it and tying it back to your work. During my active years of the league, we actually had our very first African-American president. Mary Austin Palmer was the first Black president of the Junior League of Columbus, and then that was followed by Courtney Porter, who was a good friend of mine and was president the year before me. But it's also providing the opportunities and having the opportunity for engagement and partnering, whether it's on an educational component, something with CYP, something where you're going and volunteering, but actually making sure it works and doing that board matrix. Every board I've ever been on, we've done that board matrix. Who do we have? What do we need? And a lot of funding sources now are requiring, they want to know your plan on how you're going to get there. And I work for Columbus Early Learning Centers, and overwhelmingly majority of the children we serve are African American. And before this came down from some of the funding sources, we were already going that way because we want our board to reflect the people that we serve, like Lisa said. And it takes time. It really takes time to get there, but being thoughtful.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking about New Directions Career Center, and we have a social justice committee that has been in place for, I think, about a year. And we started out having monthly conversations, and we discussing different topics. It was an education, as Amy talked as well, on educating on the racial pieces, all of that, which was, I think, really helpful. So that was in a safe environment, that people could ask questions. And then, even though we had been very committed to have a board that also looks like our clients, we made huge strides this year because we really laser focused on the networking piece. And what happened is then one board member would join and she knew someone else, and it just really snowballed in such a good way for us. That doesn't mean we're done. It just means we've got the momentum you know, to keep going. It doesn't mean that we've solved the problems, you know, because we're at the point now of how do we incorporate things into the organization, and that's a harder piece, but we're continuing to move in that direction. So
Okay. So Lisa, you mentioned that like your board was looking at what they had and trying to recruit. So like for most boards that you ladies have been on, were you like, do people recruit? Do you go out, do I sign up online and say I'm interested in being a part of your board? Do you recruit within your membership? Like how do you end up on these board positions within different organizations?
I think for what I found in a kid, again, it's been a little bit of both. You know, so there are some board members who maybe got involved. They started attending fundraisers, you know, found they were really passionate for the organization and joined that way. And then we have some that have been volunteers and maybe are serving on a committee. And then we ask them, would you like to join the board? And at the same time, then I think we're also being strategic and looking at, you know, what skill set maybe are we short on, you know, who else do we need to, you know, best position us and meet our strategic goals?
Some being asked, some reaching out, but I believe Lisa had mentioned it earlier. If you're not sure, always, or if they're limited in regards to the number of board members, seeing if you can serve on a committee, because you can really get a good idea of what the board is going to be like by serving on that committee. And then when openings come up, that might be your avenue to get in. Also seeing almost like the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon or 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, who knows someone that knows someone. But there's sometimes also young professional boards for these other boards that you can join. And whether it's you're young in terms of age or perhaps your placement at work or your ability for time and your ability for financial resources.
No, that's a great point, Amy. I forgot there are, you know, I think, you know, COSI kind of has a young professionals. I think the Museum of Art does. I think the Metropolitan Library System even maybe started one. So that is a really good idea to kind of get that experience and see what board you might be interested in.
And so for your current board positions, was there anything you had to do specifically to prepare? Like, did you have to research? I know earlier we talked about, Lisa, you took a CPA role, but like sometimes you don't have to be CPA to be a treasurer. Sometimes you don't have to be, you don't have to be that in your regular life, like a fundraiser to be the chair of the fund development. So is there anything that you had to do to prepare you for a role that you didn't do every single day? And this is for all three of you.
No, you go, Lisa.
Well, I think, you know, there's so much stuff out there right now on podcasts or YouTube, etc. You know, if there is a area that you're interested in that you might not have the skill set, I think you can probably get an intro to that somewhere. A kid, again, we've offered for our board members, because we have chapters in different cities, different like online courses kind of on here's your high fly of fundraising and things to focus on.
Anyone else?
I would say take advantage of any learning opportunity that the organization offers you, because sometimes it's where they might pay for you to go. Like Lori was talking about one of the, I'm sure it was one of the national conferences or the international conference for Junior League. But, you know, sometimes it's an online course, sometimes it's something in person, and take advantage of that with Junior League. You know, we of course have you know, Code Day or ODI or stuff like that. And other boards that I've served on, it might not be as extensive as that, but it's something a little bit smaller. And pre-COVID days, it would be in person, but now it might be via Zoom.
So I will dovetail. Those are excellent suggestions. And for me, it's been, being on the committee, not being the chair of it, and learning, and then learning from the people that are, in the know on it. And I've been able to pick up skill sets that I didn't have before. So.
Okay, those are all really great answers. So when did you ladies know it was time for you to step down or to take on another board position?
Sometimes your term ends, and I can speak for when I became president in 2016 and I joined the league as a new member in 2006. I had the privilege of serving on all of the different councils in one way or another, sometimes as a worker bee, sometimes in charge, and once then when you were president, there really wasn't anything, more that you could do within the junior league. But also it could be timing. Like it could be timing with family. It could be timing with work. It could also be making sure that you take care of you. Because right now it's so hard where we're trying to juggle everything that then you have to be mindful and say, okay, now it's my time to take a step back, and maybe I'm going to put my energy into work or family or myself. And that's okay. It's okay to not be doing something. And I don't think that we hear that enough. And I don't think I listen to myself enough when I say that, because I like to go, go, go. But sometimes you'll know in your heart, I think.
I think that's true. Either, it might not be as fun as it used to be, or maybe you don't feel like you're being challenged enough. And so maybe you're looking for a new opportunity, or maybe really like taking a nonprofit from being, kind of a startup nonprofit and small, and then you're able to grow it. And then maybe once it's bigger, you're like, well, this isn't what I'm passionate about. And then you can, take your talent and, help another one get going. So I agree, Amy. I think if you really listen to yourself, you'll kind of know what the answer is.
And I think that's true. I think on one board I stayed on an extra year, and I'd been on it for a number of years. And I had a passion for the organization, but I was not. I was burned out on the board, and I had told him I would do one more year, and I did the one more year. I probably shouldn't have. Sometimes it's better to leave when you're still having fun. Because I was sad to say goodbye, but it was, the best thing. And I think sometimes too, you can, I didn't feel like I was bringing value to the organization, but still supportive of them and attend their fundraisers and their and everything. But so that's where I was on that.
That's really good. Lisa, you said you brought up challenge. So have you ladies ever taken on a role that have taken you out of your comfort zone within an organization? It doesn't even have to be a board, but like in your nonprofit community impact work, have you ever taken on an assignment or a task or a role that took you out of your comfort zone, but you were so excited that you did it?
I think most of the time that I sign up for something, it's not really in my comfort zone right away. So, at junior league, I think maybe when I was a committee member, I felt okay, there was other folks to kind of lead the way and show me what to do, knew what was expected of me. But I think anytime kind of stepping into a new leadership position where you're taking on more responsibility, I felt definitely a little uncomfortable. But my motto also is kind of be like, if you're not comfortable, you're not growing. So when I know I don't feel comfortable, I know that I'm learning new skills and, challenging myself to become a better me.
I like that. If you're not comfortable, you're not growing. Writing that down.
Yeah. My younger stepdaughter did crew in high school, which my husband and I knew absolutely nothing about. And we we decided, well, in order for us to really truly know, we should learn how to row. And so if you ever see those shells on the water, like having to carry the boat, getting in the boat, rowing so that you don't tip the boat, so you don't get ejected from the boat, that was it was a learning experience. But then I did the Learn to Row program a couple more summers because it was fun. But I would not be on any team for that. I would not be helping the team. I would not be on any Olympic team. I would not. But yeah, it pushed me out of the comfort zone in which to do it. And then, but it's not something I would say I'm going to do lifelong. It's not something I'm going to go back to.
Yeah.
But I then could understand what it really took for them to do it each and every single day.
And when I've had to take on big leadership roles, whether it's a board chair or or a big committee chair, I'm so nervous of like, can I really do this? And because you can see how much work is involved, and you think, oh my gosh, do I have the time, to do that? And I will look back and say how wonderful all those times were, and almost really the more challenging, the better. And the junior league president was probably one of the best experiences that I had, and it was like a full-time job at times. But I loved every minute of it. So.
And I'll say, because I do think it's scary to sign up for something, whether it's a new job, professional job, or a new role in a nonprofit, is that, someone's got to do it. And if you've been tapped and people believe in you, like, just know, like, one, people are grateful that you're stepping up. And give yourself some grace to ease into the role. You're not going to know everything right away. That's okay. There's going to be time to grow into it. And if other people believe in you, you can do it. We're all humans, so there's always, someone's going to have to step into that leadership role. So why not you?
And Lisa, I'd like to say that I was so fortunate within the junior league that the women that were there before me that I could go to and ask for help or ask for advice.
Right.
And also when you're going into a leadership position, whether it's on a committee, a chair of a committee, or a board, surround yourself with people that help you be better. Surround the people around you that you trust. Surround the people around, surround yourself with people who, Lori's got my back, or Nicole or Lisa has got my back, because then, even though that doesn't mean you still don't have to check and follow up, you have your team with you and you're together and you're strong. And it's funny with the league, at least, as with all nonprofits, you kind of go around and then you see things from before. And when someone says, hey, we tried XYZ, take that time to listen, because it might not be relevant, or it could be very relevant, and just learn from those experiences.
Yeah.
And kind of dovetailing on what you had said, Amy, I had my resources around me, my support system, and they may not have been on the board. Maybe they were past presidents, but that I would go to them because you feel like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders, and you don't. You just have to ask people, well, what do you think? Can you help me with this? Can you give me some history on things? And that part takes time, but that also builds relationships with people that you might not have, they may say, well, call this person, and you don't know this person, but you talk to them and suddenly you now have a different connection. So that part is good. It makes the organization better, and it makes you better as a leader, realizing you can't do it all by yourself.
Absolutely. Do we have any more questions from the audience? No. So I just want to thank you ladies so much for joining us and providing the terrific insight that you were able to provide. I also want to let everyone know that, again, we are having our back to school bash on August 7th at Trinity Baptist Church from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. And it's sort of a collaboration of Trinity Baptist Church and our ABC project. You can also visit us at the Dirty Franks booth on August 7th at the Columbus Crew game. They play against Atlanta United, and a portion of the proceeds goes towards our Bridging the Gap project, which helps youth transitioning out of foster care sort of succeed and go into independent living a little bit with, provides them with help and support. And then again, thank you all so much, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.